This strange snake could actually fly directly in the air, right after crawling out of its mother's body. Its mouth is filled with sharp fangs, making it look extremely terrifying. The strange snake suddenly bit its mother's stomach, as if it was absorbing something from her. The shocked woman tried to reach out her hand to touch her child. In fact, this woman isn't human. She is called Mother and is a high-tech creation. She has all the functions of a human, and is the most powerful necromancer among combat robots. The man traveling with her is called Father. Like Mother, he is also a robot. However, he is only a general-purpose service-type bionic robot. Their original mission was to come to this planet and jointly cultivate human embryos, and establish a godless civilization. Previously, they successfully raised 6 children, but during their growth, the other 5 children passed away one after another, due to illness or accidents. In the end, only the boy named Campion survived. Later, during a conflict with the Mthraics, Mother brought back 5 Mthraic children from the Ark. Since then, the two have been taking care of these 6 children. Unexpectedly, Mother was implanted with a snake embryo by an unknown civilization, which led to the birth of this strange snake. Back to the present. Because the strange snake has been absorbing Mother's energy, ordinary methods can't kill it. Father and Mother dare not wake it up casually, to prevent it from causing serious consequences. The two had to jump into a cave, filled with magma along with the strange snake, hoping to kill it this way. Unexpectedly, their spaceship broke through the planet's core, and arrived at the other side of the planet. Seeing the strange snake open its mouth, the two jumped off the spaceship, but this caused them to enter a shutdown state. However, the strange snake was not only unharmed, but also absorbed the heat from the planet's core. It grew hundreds of times larger in an instant and turned into a huge serpent. It then disappeared into the depths of the forest. On the other side, the entire tropical region has been occupied by atheists. 2 soldiers found the shut-down Mother and Father in a haystack. Not far from them, there was also a freshly shed snakeskin. The 2 robots were taken back to the base by the soldiers for research. A medic used a laser knife to cut open Mother's outer shell. Just as he was about to reach in to take out the processor, he realized that Mother wasn't an ordinary robot, but a phantom dedicated to killing. But it was already too late. Mother's defense mechanism was activated instantly, corroding the medic. Just as Mother was about to go on a killing spree, a man's voice rang out. Mother followed the sound and approached the leader of the atheists. Inside a glass cover was a supercomputer, which also stated that its name was Victor, and that it shared the same creator as Mother. Therefore, the two address each other as siblings. Now, if the atheists win, Victor will replace humans as the supreme ruler. Until a suitable human leader emerges, Victor told Mother that all her children had been brought to the base, and the family was finally reunited. Campion was overjoyed. He also asked Mother how the child she had just given birth to was doing, but Mother didn't tell him that the child was a snake. She only said that the child had died shortly after birth. Shortly after that, Victor promised to keep everyone safe, telling them they could rest assured and live in the tropical region. This place was very suitable for living. When they arrived at their new home, it had all necessary facilities, under the leadership of the supercomputer Victor. Everything here was well organized. Every day, everyone would receive their own tasks via their retinas, but the children were not happy about this, because they had once believed in Sol, the sun god. As a result, they were treated differently by the atheists. On this day, they received a task to go gather supplies. Father took his daughter Nicole and found a cave. Here, they discovered many mysterious symbols carved on the cave walls. However, the symbols were covered with scratches, as if someone was deliberately hiding something. Nicole also found some bones there. Father decided to take them back for research. The scene shifts. Campion and Paul also made a discovery. Paul found a cube in the soil beside a tree. There was a symbol of the Tree of Wisdom carved on it. It was obvious that this was a product of the Mthraic religion. Campion found a clutch of eggs in the tree, but Victor had clearly stipulated that no one was allowed to privately keep any items they found. However, Paul didn't want to hand over the cube. He believed it was a gift given to him by Sol, the sun god. Campion also didn't want to put the eggs back. Maybe they could hatch a pet. The two brothers thought the same thing, and decided to keep it a secret from each other. That night, the two were playing with the things they had brought back in their bedroom. Suddenly, alarms went off everywhere in the room. Everyone hurried out to check and found that a big fire had broken out on the ground. The flames gradually formed the symbol of the Mthraic religion. This must have been the doing of the atheists. The next day, Mother received a punishment mission. Mike, a man with a mustache, had violated the atheists' laws, because he had always been very discriminatory towards robots, and even disliked living under the rule of robots. Mike not only badmouthed Victor behind his back, but even came to Mother's door and set a fire. This kind of behavior crossed the moral bottom line of the supercomputer Victor. So Mother received the mission to punish Mike. In order not to reveal her identity, Alan gave Mother a full-body coat to wear and even a mask. Then Mother severely beat Mike. After finishing this matter, she saw father piecing together the collected bones. He discovered that these bones were actually millions of years old. What was even more amazing was that, when some plants were placed on the bones, they could actually grow. Mother wasn't interested in the bones. She told her husband about the punishment she had given Mike. Father was very happy to hear that someone had stood up for them. He felt that their family was living in a home with a sound system, so he didn't want to be forced to leave because of discrimination. It was dinner time. The family was discussing today's tasks. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Father opened the door, and it was Mike. It turned out Victor had ordered him to come and apologize to the family for his mistakes. And it wasn't just Mother's family, he also had to apologize to all the residents here. Campion looked at the disheveled Mike, and at the same time, he worried that Victor would find out about the things he had hidden privately. Meanwhile, Marcus, who had been left in the frigid zone, was shivering uncontrollably from the cold. An atheist spaceship had spotted him the day before and opened fire on him. Marcus could only grab his weapon and hide in the shadows. He aimed at the spaceship and fired a jamming round. The spaceship short-circuited instantly and crashed to the ground. When Marcus arrived at the scene, the pilot had already stopped breathing. Marcus became the owner of the spaceship. He found the atheist camp through the positioning system. Just as he was about to launch an attack on the camp, Victor seized control of the spaceship. The attack route deviated instantly. Seeing that things were going wrong, Marcus pulled out his gun and shot at the control panel. He drove Victor out of the spaceship system. However, the spaceship was also damaged, lost control, and crashed into the acid sea. Marcus climbed out in a hurry. He noticed that there was no place to stand except for the reef in the distance. In acid water of this concentration, Marcus would be corroded in less than 10 seconds. He suddenly thought of the laser cable in the spaceship and took it out. Marcus shot the cable at the reef and dragged the spaceship toward it. Finally, just 1 second before the acid sea was about to engulf the spaceship, Marcus leaped with all his strength, and was finally pulled onto the reef by the laser cable. Afraid of being spotted, Marcus left the scene. While on the run, he picked up a metal card left behind by the religious sect. Later, he also found a hidden cave nearby. Here, he saw that huge sun god symbol once again. This place was exactly the holy site of the Mthraic religion. Marcus, with tears in his eyes, clutched the emblem on his chest. He decided to make this place his secret base. The next day, he set out to find something to eat. Before long, he saw a succulent plant bigger than a human. Marcus didn't think twice. He plucked a fruit and took a bite. It seemed to taste quite good. Just then, a commotion was heard in the distance. He took out his binoculars and looked over, only to find that they were fugitives from the atheists. Thinking that he was in urgent need of expanding his team, Marcus took them back to his base. The woman's name was Dismas, and the girl beside her was Lisa, a service robot. Dismas was now desperate, and seeing how idealistic Marcus was, she agreed to join the Mthraic religion. She was ready to accomplish something great together with Marcus. It was late at night, when Lisa noticed that the atheist spaceships were out again, arresting defectors. Abiding by the idea that the enemy of one's enemy is one's friend, Marcus decided to help those fugitives escape the atheists' pursuit. Soon, he arrived at the seaside and unexpectedly ran into Mike, who had fled. It turned out that Mike couldn't stand apologizing from door to door, so he had chosen to defect. When he saw Marcus extending an olive branch to him, they returned to the cave and prepared to climb up the ladder. Before long, the soldiers found their way here following the traces. Marcus hurried to hide aside. Just at this moment, the sea began to rise, and a large amount of acid water poured into the cave. Marcus jumped onto the ladder, while the soldiers who chased after him were corroded and melted by the acid water. From then on, the Mthraic religion gained another member. On the other side, after learning that Mike had fled, Campion grew more and more worried that Victor would find out about the things he had hidden privately. To avoid being punished, he planned to quietly put the eggs back, but accidentally dropped and broke one while climbing up. A rustling sound was heard, and the tail of a giant snake swept across the air, stunning the boy. Immediately after, those vertical pupils stared at the boy, as if performing mind reading on him. Mother was very worried when she saw Campion hadn't come back all night, so she gathered the family and went to look for him. 100 meters away from the snake's nest, Mother recognized that this was the giant snake she had given birth to. Seeing Campion lying unconscious on the ground, while the giant snake was carefully gazing at the boy on the ground, the snake recognized Mother at this moment too. When it saw the mother fly into a rage at it, it turned around and flew into the sky. Mother finally felt relieved when she saw there was no major issue. Moreover, the sudden appearance of the giant snake also made Mother start to show her maternal personality. Just at this moment, another team that was still searching for Campion heard a strange sound in the distance by the seaside. They soon spotted a giant snake soaring in the sky, which quickly disappeared into the clouds. Father also recognized that it was the giant snake Mother had given birth to, and told everyone to run away. In the blink of an eye, everyone scattered and fled. They were so ungrateful that they shut the door, refusing to let Father and the children in. But soon, the people inside the habitat module would pay for their actions. The cables were swiftly pulled away, and a powerful force was dragging the module toward the acid sea. Even so, Father still wanted to save people, but there was no time left. The habitat module had already been dragged into the acid sea by the giant snake. In less than 5 minutes, the habitat module vanished. The next morning, the death of the residents from the previous day caused a panic. Victor also assigned the same task to all members, to hunt and kill the giant snake. But Mother felt that ordinary people alone were no match for the giant snake, even though she no longer had her phantom eyes, and had lost the ability to fly and attack. For the safety of the residents and the children, she resolutely shouldered a rocket launcher and prepared to go kill the giant snake. Father's task was to use the Mthraic fishing island as bait, and then release mating signals near the giant snake to lure it out. Not long after the snake hunting team set off, they were spotted by Marcus and his group. The latter decided to seize their tank. Mike wanted to prove himself with this, so he volunteered to hide aside. He took advantage of the tank soldiers' inattention, and threw a jamming round into the tank's engine. In an instant, the tank's circuits were disrupted, and it stalled on the spot. The tank soldier was about to get down to check for faults, but Marcus shot him dead with a single bullet. Just then, Lisa, whose battery was almost dead, needed to return to the cave to hibernate. On her way back, she encountered an atheist team. Even though she broke through the siege, her calf was still hit. Fortunately, she met Paul and Campion. The two boys were outside in charge of picking fruits. The boys sent her back to the cave. Paul found some familiar items here, and he realized that this was Marcus' territory. The scene shifts, and Marcus had just seized a tank. Before long, he detected the giant snake's mating signal. He hurried over in a panic, only to find that it was Father's snake hunting team. Marcus would certainly not let go of such a chance to expand his team. He threatened Father to release the Mthraic believers, but Father's programming didn't allow him to do so. The two immediately started fighting. Even though Father was a service-type robot, he was more than a match for a human. But Marcus was not to be underestimated either, for he had gained superpowers after swallowing the phantom eye. Black streaks began to spread across his face, and he instantly became strong. Father began to feel outmatched. After just a few rounds, Father was defeated. The Mthraic captives all believed that Marcus was a messenger sent by the gods, and chose to join him. On the other side, Mother found a gigantic snakeskin, which made her feel sad. Why couldn't this one be as kind as Campion when they were both her children? Thinking of this, Mother blew out a breath, instantly setting the snakeskin on fire. Watching the raging flames, her determination to kill the giant snake grew even stronger. As Mother passed through a forest, she noticed something in front of her seemed to be turning invisible. She shouldered her rocket launcher and fired a shot. When she approached to check, she found it was a huge invisible man-eating flower. Mother chose to take a detour. Later, she arrived at the foot of a mountain. The roar of the giant snake came from the mountaintop. She climbed to the peak and saw the giant snake coiling at the top of the mountain. Judging by its size, it must have been at least 50 meters long. Looking at her own child in front of her, Mother's heart softened. She chose to put down her weapon and caught a bird. Mother held the bird out to the giant snake. This was her final chance for the giant snake. If she found out the giant snake was carnivorous, then Mother would have to kill it. As the giant snake slowly approached, Mother closed her eyes. The giant snake showed no interest in the bird. Instead, it began eating the winter melon nearby. Mother was overjoyed at the sight, realizing that the giant snake was a herbivore. To ensure the giant snake's safety, and to avoid misunderstandings among everyone, Mother brought it back and locked it in a cave at the camp. Meanwhile, Father was found by the residents and rescued. He was also restarted at this time. After learning that Mother had brought the giant snake back, he went to the cave to check on the situation. He found that many members of the camp opposed bringing the giant snake back, for this giant snake had attacked the camp just the day before. But Mother said at this point that she had already studied this giant snake. Its skin couldn't resist the corrosion of the acid sea, which was enough to prove that the creature that attacked the camp yesterday was another one. At this moment, Campion also spoke up. He said the giant snake had not tried to harm him under the tree the day before. However, Father's parenting program began to kick in at this time. He opposed Mother, believing that the giant snake would endanger the safety of the residents here. Mother also had a similar protection program, but it only applied to protecting the children until they grew up. In the end, the two parted on bad terms. Father returned to the storage module, feeling very angry. He was dissatisfied with Mother because of this incident, and took the nearby skeleton as an outlet for his anger. An unbelievable scene then occurred. The plants that had been growing on the skeleton withered and faded away in the blink of an eye. Right after that, a patch of golden tissue slowly began to grow on the surface of the skeleton. Father could hardly believe his eyes. It seemed that all this was caused by the fuel inside his body. He quickly squeezed the fuel from his ear onto the skeleton. The golden tissue started growing and became more and more complete. There even grew something similar to human skin on its head. Father originally thought this was the work of fungi, and wanted to scrape off these tissues for research. Unexpectedly, he couldn't remove them, and the tissues even emitted a light similar to electric current. At this moment, the core of the skeleton also began to pulse. Father realized that this wreckage was slowly coming back to life. To obtain more fuel and speed up the resurrection process, Father took his friend to the camp's second-hand market, hoping to get some fuel with metal cards. However, the owner David thought these items were too common and worthless. David gave him an idea to help him fight an underground boxing match. The opponent was Stinger, a production robot. Father understood. This kind of production robot was strong but lacked intelligence. He agreed without hesitation, but he never expected that Stinger would play dirty and opened fire on Father with a machine gun. Father picked up a steel plate, using it to block the bullets while running to the cover behind. Stinger leaped at him like a tiger, trying to cut Father in half with a chainsaw. Fortunately, Father moved nimbly and landed a punch on Stinger. However, it didn't cause any damage to Stinger, and Father's hand was in terrible pain. Father picked up an iron rod from the ground and waited for a chance to circle behind Stinger. He inserted the iron rod into Stinger's neck, causing it to leak electricity all over its body and short-circuit on the spot. Father picked up a heavy stick and finished off Stinger right then and there. The entire audience erupted in cheers. After returning, Father poured the fuel onto the skeleton, but what he didn't expect was that the fuel wasn't absorbed by the skeleton this time. Could it be that the purity was too low? Father decided to go out again to find fuel of higher purity, but as soon as he left, the skeleton wreckage began to react. It seemed to be deliberately avoiding Father. The fuel was quickly absorbed by it. When Father returned to the storage room again, he found it in a complete mess. The skeleton was nowhere to be seen. Only a table with a big burnt hole was left. Father felt dejected. Suddenly, golden light flickered outside the door. Father hurried over and opened the door. A magical scene appeared before his eyes. Outside stood a glittering golden humanoid figure. Several days earlier, Lisa was shot in the calf while hiding from the atheist's pursuit. Fortunately, she ran into Paul and Campion, who were gathering supplies. The two boys took her back to the cave, but Paul found some familiar items in the cave, and he also realized that this was Marcus' hiding place. After returning to the base, under Victor's questioning, Paul hid the truth about Marcus' base. But Victor not only didn't punish Paul for lying, but also gave him a pet, saying it was a reward for his honesty. Victor told him that Marcus would be arrested by them within 24 hours, so the next day, Paul took the card and the pet with him and went to the cave to find Marcus. Although the latter had killed Paul's biological parents, Paul didn't bear a grudge against him because of that. This was because they shared a common faith and had lived together for 12 years. After learning about Victor's plan through Paul, Marcus prepared to take everyone and leave the cave. Just then, some powder drifted out of Paul's bag. The boy also began to feel cold all over. Shortly after that, mold began to grow continuously on his limbs. Black spots also appeared on his arms. A believer tried to hand a glass of water to Paul, but at this moment, the pet suddenly exploded. A large amount of powder spread out in the air instantly. The believer was instantly covered with black spots all over his body. He fell to the ground and screamed in agony. Watching everything that had just happened, Marcus realized what was going on in an instant. He picked up Paul, carried him outside the cave, and laid him in the sunlight. He begged Sol, the sun god, to save Paul's life, but soon the black spots spread all over Paul's body. In fact, Victor knew all along that Paul was lying. He just planned to play along with Paul's trick to arrest Marcus. This was because he believed that Paul would come here to tip them off. That was why he had planted a biochemical weapon in the pet to attack them. Seeing this situation, Campion ran toward the base to find Mother for help, but Dismas was extremely afraid of Mother, for the latter was a combat-type phantom. She ordered Lisa to catch Campion and bring him back. Unexpectedly, after catching up with him, Lisa knocked Campion to the ground with a single punch. Just then, a monster climbed up from the sea, grabbed Lisa's leg, and tried to drag her into the acid sea. The boy was stunned by the sight, but he didn't overthink. He just picked up a stone nearby, ran over, and hit the monster's head with it. Seeing that the monster still wouldn't let go, Campion kept hitting it desperately until he smashed the monster's head to a pulp. Only then did he rescue Lisa from the monster's grasp. The girl felt deeply ashamed. Even though she had intended to harm him, the boy still risked his own safety to save her, and this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. So she decided to let Campion go. But Jason saw this scene clearly. The latter raised his gun and shot at Campion. While running away, the boy accidentally fell into a ditch. Just as Jason was about to keep shooting, a dazzling golden light suddenly shone. Campion fixed his eyes on it and saw that it was a glittering humanoid figure. He took advantage of this opportunity to escape. After the light faded away, Jason realized that the boy had escaped. After returning to the camp, he told Mother about Paul's situation. Mother immediately realized that Victor had actually used Paul as bait, but now was not the time to settle scores with him, as rescuing Paul was the top priority. She followed Campion and soon arrived at Marcus' location. The latter was praying constantly, but Paul had already turned into a piece of charcoal. If it weren't for the fact that he was still breathing, no one would tell he was a human being. Mother wanted to take Paul back to her own camp for treatment, but Marcus was furious at Victor for using a child in this aggressive way. Without saying much, he attacked Mother. He used the snake skin in his hand to strangle Mother's neck, knocked her to the ground, and dragged her a long way, then he kicked her in the head. It seemed that Marcus had improved a lot in ability after swallowing the phantom eye, both in strength and mobility. He was no worse than Mother. It looked as if the latter's neck was about to be broken by the man. Fortunately, Campion threw a stone, which distracted Marcus for a moment. This gave Mother a chance to turn the tide. She knocked Marcus away and got up from the ground. She happened to see the blue light emanating from Marcus' stomach. Mother immediately realized something. That glowing object seemed to be exactly her own phantom eye. Immediately after that, she controlled the phantom eye to leave Marcus' body, and took out the ordinary mechanical eye. Then she reinstalled the phantom eye on herself. As the eye flickered with a glow, Mother's power returned to its peak state once again. She transformed into a phantom, picked up Paul, and rushed to the atheist base. What Mother didn't expect was that Victor not only didn't admit his mistake, but even ordered his subordinates to destroy Mother. Countless guns, artillery, and tanks opened fire on Mother, but the bullets and shells seemed to have no effect on her. She just opened her mouth, unleashed a high-intensity sonic attack, and caused several tanks to explode. Seeing that the opponent was now unstoppable, Victor had to order his subordinates to open the door. Mother handed Paul over to Sue for treatment. Then she began to threaten Victor to hand over the antidote that could cure Paul, but Victor stated that there was no cure for this toxin. In fact, Victor had originally planned to exchange the lives of 3 children for victory. Mother knew that as a supercomputer, lying wasn't an option for him, so she made Victor promise to regard human life as the most precious thing. If Victor refused to comply, she would shut down its operation, but Victor believed that Marcus and Paul were completely unrepentant, thus refusing the request. Seeing that persuasion was useless, Mother knelt down and exhaled a breath of hot air toward the floor. The metal floor melted instantly, revealing Victor's central processing unit. In the end, Mother shut Victor down permanently. She became the leader of the atheists. The scene shifts. The woman wanted to take a few rare bugs back for research, but she never expected a sea monster to climb out of the acid sea. That monster was ferociously terrifying and made strange noises from its mouth. After taking aim, Campion threw a tranquilizer dart at it. The sea monster soon passed out. Seeing the opportunity, they hurried over to the sea monster and placed their backpacks on its back. Then they held down its body and put the black bugs one by one into a thermos cup used as a container. But soon after, the monster woke up and struggled fiercely against the two. Sue was instantly sent flying. Fortunately, she was experienced. She quickly adopted the same posture as the sea monster and roared loudly at it. The sea monster was instantly scared out of its wits and stepped back in a hurry before returning to the acid sea. But why did Sue want to catch these small bugs? It was because Paul had turned into a mass of black substance after being affected by the chemical weapon. If another 24 hours passed, the mutant cells would continue to decompose Paul's body. No matter how anxious Sue was and how many different methods she tried, none of them worked. Even the most advanced medical robot couldn't provide a treatment plan. In near despair, Sue held Paul's necklace and prayed to Sol, the sun god, begging him to save Paul's life. After some time, she fell asleep. When Sue opened his eyes again, she unexpectedly found a black bug in the sterile chamber where Paul was located. Sue couldn't figure out why such a creature would suddenly appear in an airtight sterile chamber like this. To prevent the bug from spreading viruses or bacteria in the sterile chamber, she put on a hazardous material suit, grabbed a storage bottle, walked up to the bug, and put it into the bottle. Then she placed the bottle on the table, but in the blink of an eye, the bug disappeared. Sue felt confused, and while she was thinking, the bug appeared inside her helmet. This shocked Sue silly, and she took off her helmet. When she checked again, the bug had disappeared once more. At this moment, Sue suddenly felt as if there was something behind her. When she turned around, she found countless leeches stuck to Paul's body. But no matter how scary the bugs were, Sue was more afraid that Paul would be harmed, so she had to pull those bugs off. But after a while, these creatures disappeared again. Sue thought she was experiencing auditory and visual hallucinations due to too much stress these days, so she asked the medical robot to give her a comprehensive mental health check. When she described the characteristics of those bugs, the robot told Sue that these bugs were mutant leeches, which have a good curative effect on cellular viruses. But to obtain these leeches, one must extract them from the sea monsters in the acid sea, so this is very dangerous. Upon hearing this, Sue suddenly realized that the hallucinations she had just experienced were most likely guidance from Sol, the sun god, so she made up her mind to use the leeches to treat Paul. Before long, she took Campion to the acid sea. With the help of a sea monster lure in the boy, they caught a sea monster. After extracting the leeches, she hurried back to the medical room and placed all the leeches on Paul, hoping that these creatures could bring Paul back to life. The scene shifts. After Marcus lost Mother's phantom eye, the black streaks on his face also disappeared. This led some people to whisper behind his back about whether he was truly the chosen one. At this moment, a soldier spotted an eerie cube standing on a distant hillside. Everyone prepared to go and check it out. By the time they reached the area, the cube was already half broken. There was a strange large hole in its exact center, Shortly after, Marcus found a hollow in the wall. He mustered up the courage to reach his hand in. Suddenly, a voice emerged. An exquisite cage slowly descended and stopped at the edge of the hole. To regain his authority, Marcus took the lead and prepared to go down into the hollow to check. But as soon as he went down into the hole, the woman praying on the shore was shot. She let out a soft moan, lost consciousness, and fell into the deep pit. Before anyone could react to what had happened, the white-haired woman turned around to look, and saw a disfigured girl staring at her. The girl stabbed the white-haired woman. Jason tried to pull out his gun to shoot, but he was too slow. The girl not only cut off his hand, but also used his own gun to shoot him in the head on the spot. Strangely enough, the girl kept shouting "Mom" as she killed. In the blink of an eye, everyone scattered and fled in all directions. A one-eyed man tried to pick up a torch to fight back, but the girl blew out his remaining eye on the spot. The white-haired woman, who had been attacked earlier, wasn't yet dead, and was trying to crawl away, but she was also killed by the girl. From the start of the fight, Dismas had been hiding behind a rock. Seeing the girl was busy dealing with the others, she disregarded the safety of her teammate Jenny and fled alone in a tank. But those who harm others will eventually harm themselves. She never expected that the girl had been waiting on the tank for a long time. Before she could react, the girl appeared behind her. Dismas begged bitterly, asking the girl to spare her life. But once a machine makes a decision, it will not change its mind because of human emotions. However, the story began 2 days earlier. Dismas' robot daughter Lisa had let Campion go, and because she had not carried out Dismas' order, Dismas beat her severely. Dismas slashed Lisa's face randomly with a knife. In the end, she even ripped off Lisa's face in front of everyone. This caused Lisa to lose all hope in Dismas. She ran to a cliff, jumped off, and then there was no more movement from her. When Dismas saw this, she was so scared that she could barely hold onto her knife. Before long, a group of people arrived at that cube temple. Marcus took the iron cage and went down into the deep pit first. The others then gathered in a circle and began to pray. Finally, the incident mentioned earlier occurred. Lisa killed them with a knife, leaving only Jenny behind. On the other side, Marcus survived the disaster, but the situation inside the cave made every day feel like a year. Not knowing just how deep this pit really was, Marcus fell asleep inside the iron cage. After an unknown amount of time, a loud bang woke him up. Finally, he reached the bottom. Marcus took out his flashlight and looked around. A gigantic snake skeleton was coiled and stuck in the cave. The iron cage happened to land on top of the snake skeleton before coming to a stop. Marcus discovered there was another horizontal cave entrance. When he entered the cave, he found a bone wall inside. Just then, the snake skeleton suddenly collapsed. The only way forward now was to keep exploring further inside. Marcus chiseled a hole in the white bone wall, and discovered that there was a whole other world inside the cave. He crawled through the hole and saw a corpse draped in snakeskin leaning against the wall. For some unknown reason, the corpse's face hadn't decomposed yet, but judging from its appearance, it wasn't human. There was a metal card on the corpse's chest, and no one knew what it was for. Marcus put the card into his pocket and carefully observed the appearance of the remains. Just then, it almost scared Marcus to death, but before he could catch his breath, he noticed the sacred object on his chest suddenly started to glow. The sacred object was a tooth of an ancient king and carried an ancient curse. He tore off the tooth and threw it to the ground. Unexpectedly, the tooth, as if responding to some force, turned into a wisp of smoke, and was absorbed into the remains' body. The remains suddenly stood up, scaring Marcus out of his wits. He hurriedly turned around and fled for his life. The remains let out a loud roar and turned into a crouching monster. Before Marcus could pass through the bone wall, the monster pulled him back by force. In the nick of time, Marcus pulled out his pistol, raised it and fired, finally resolving the crisis. But before one crisis was over, another arose. The iron cage suddenly started to rise at this moment. He didn't dare to delay for a second. While muttering, "May the sun god protect me," he grabbed the edge of the iron cage. When he returned to the ground, he found Dismas hanging in midair by an iron chain. Marcus realized only then that all their companions had died except Jenny, while the two were burning the bodies. The muzzle of a gun was pressed against the back of Marcus' head. It turned out to be Father, who had come with Truman to look for Jenny. In this way, Marcus was taken back by them. Since Father revived that glowing robot, he had been spending all day with it. This masked robot had never responded to Father, and Father had also become curious about the face under its mask. Just as he was about to catch a glimpse of its face, Mother arranged for Father to look after Pace, who was about to give birth. As soon as Father had just left, Pace found this robot in the storage room. She wanted to step forward to observe it up close, but unexpectedly, the robot's mask showed an image of the baby in Pace's belly. This made Pace feel very confused, and she was scared and ran away. On the other side, Paul had slowly returned to normal under the effect of the mutant leeches. Soon after, Paul and Sue lay by the seaside, enjoying the time of surviving a disaster, but Paul couldn't figure out no matter how hard he tried, how Sue knew that this kind of leech had such a curative effect. So Sue told Paul about what had happened after she prayed to the sun god, but Sue knew that the one who had responded to her wasn't Sol the sun god, but another existence. It was more like some kind of unknown life form. that had mastered holographic projection technology. After returning home, Paul fell asleep, but Sue heard that mysterious voice again. On the other side, Pace felt as if there was something behind her. When she slowly turned around, she found the mysterious monster from the acid sea. The monster didn't do anything to harm Pace. It just stretched out its hands and snatched the baby from her arms. The corrosive liquid on the monster's body caused Pace unbearable pain. Then a terrifying scene happened. Then the monster turned around and returned to the acid sea. In fact, after Pace saw the image of the fetus in her belly on the ancient robot's mask, the fetus began to grow rapidly. In just a few days, she was about to give birth. On the eve of giving birth, Pace quietly sneaked out of the base. She went to the shore of the acid sea alone and lay down on the reef. After the severe pain, a baby was born crying. This was also the first child born to humans on Kepler planet. Pace couldn't accept the reality, and originally wanted to throw the baby into the acid sea, but her heart softened in the end. The baby's cries attracted the acid sea monster over. The monster climbed onto the shore and snatched the newborn baby. Pace watched all this happen and wanted to jump into the sea to stop the monster. Fortunately, the team arrived in time and stopped her. After returning to the base, Mother made up her mind. She would go to the seaside with Pace to look for the child together. Once Pace recovered her strength, the scene shifts. Campion also found that robot in the storage room, but surprisingly, when the robot saw Campion, it reached out its hand as if to greet him. The boy also reached out his hand to respond. At the moment their bodies touched, the robot emitted a golden light and then rose into the air. To protect her family, Mother put on her phantom eye, activated the attack mode, and stepped forward to confront the robot. It was obvious that because the ancient robot had not been activated for too long, its energy was not as strong as Mother's. After a few minutes, it returned to its previous lifeless state. Mother sensed that this robot had the same dark photon processor as herself inside its body, so she took the robot to the laboratory for a comprehensive inspection. Only then did she discover that her structure was very similar to that of this robot. The only difference was that there was no attack system installed in the robot's body, yet it still had many unknown module functions. Just as they were confused, the gate where the giant snake was held suddenly sounded an alarm. Mother went to check and found the violent giant snake roaring. Even though it was her own child, Mother didn't indulge it at all and yelled at the giant snake. When the giant snake saw Mother lose her temper, it calmed down. Mother began to stroke the giant snake's head, but Mother would never know that the reason for the giant snake's abnormality was that Paul and Sue were trying every means to open a metal cube. Not long ago, a mysterious voice had guided Sue and Paul to use a laser sphere to open the cube and take out the seeds inside. But what Sue never expected was that even after scanning with the laser for a long time, until the laser sphere's battery was drained, it couldn't even scratch a single mark on the cube. Seeing this situation, Sue prepared to seek Marcus' help. In the evening, Sue went to the detention room and released Marcus. The three of them were thus reunited once again. They had been separated before because of Sol the sun god, and now they were reunited again because of the sun god. It was precisely because of the seeds that the giant snake was restless. Mother also felt that something was wrong. Since Sue was a doctor, Mother wanted to ask her for help to check, but when she went to Sue's residence, she found that Sue had disappeared without a trace. Only after checking the recorder did she learn that Sue had obeyed the instructions of that mysterious voice, and betrayed her and the entire camp. Mother was extremely angry about this. Later, she found Truman, Marcus' archenemy. She wanted to find out what plans and intentions Marcus' family had, but Truman knew nothing about it either. He only handed over the metal card he had found on Marcus to Mother. This metal card turned out to be an encrypted file. Its content could only be viewed after returning to the camp and decrypting it. Meanwhile, Marcus' family was enjoying the joy of their reunion. On the other side, everyone knew that the acid sea monster had snatched Pace's child. They set out to look for it the next day. It didn't take long for them to catch a monster, but after identification, Pace said this wasn't the culprit. However, she didn't choose to let it go. After peeling off the monster's skin with a knife, she wrapped it around Xiaohei's drone. This way, the drone could conduct surveys in the acid sea. After the drone dived, it detected acid sea monsters of all sizes. Unexpectedly, the good times didn't last long. The drone was soon damaged by the monsters. The drone returned to the shore via its automatic return program. Campion was just about to go retrieve the drone when he saw someone take it first. He hurriedly chased closely after that person. Only then did he realize that the one who had taken the drone was Lisa. The girl was wearing a mask at this time. When Jenny saw Lisa, she started yelling insults at her, for it was Lisa who had killed all the Mthraic disciples right in front of her. Lisa explained that this was because her defense mechanism had been activated with a delay, and she had never intended to kill anyone. Then she told everyone that she had fatally heard the cry of a baby in a cave 10 kilometers away just now. Campion trusted Lisa very much and asked Jenny and Vita to go back first. The others followed Lisa to that cave, only to find that it was actually a dead monster larva. Shohei believed that Lisa had deceived everyone, and planned to take her back to the camp to force her to shut down. This idea was opposed by Campion. The situation was on the verge of a deadlock, perhaps because Lisa was also afraid of being shut down. She climbed up the cliff and fled in a panic. Campion didn't want Lisa to misunderstand him, so he hurried to follow her. In the evening, Father and the others heard a sound similar to a baby's cry again. When they went into the cave, they found that the monster that had snatched the child was nursing the baby. Father was just about to go up and kill the monster, but unexpectedly, Pace stopped him. However, Shohei couldn't accept the fact that a human was being raised by a monster. He killed the monster on the spot and took the baby back. Then the group returned to the camp. The scene shifts. While Pace and the others were going to the seaside to look for the child, Marcus' family was planning to rest for the night and think about the cube after waking up. It was late at night. Paul couldn't fall asleep, for he kept thinking about that cube. He wanted Sue to sing him a lullaby. That lullaby was exactly the password to open the cube. Inside the cube were the seeds of the tree of wisdom. The moment Sue picked up the seeds, these small things quickly merged with her. Then Sue staggered toward the distance, with a painful look on her face. Before long, Sue knelt down on the ground and began to dig frantically. The next morning, Paul looked at the already open cube but couldn't find Sue anywhere. At this moment, he spotted a towering giant tree in the distance. Paul quickly woke Marcus up, and the two went to look for Sue together. Before long, Marcus found a strange fruit under that tree. He didn't think much of it, picked it up, and took a bite. Suddenly, there was a sound under his feet. The vines on the ground seemed to come alive, constantly absorbing the surrounding energy into the tree trunk. Marcus stared at the big tree and then walked forward slowly. When he pressed his hand against the tree trunk, he heard a sound similar to a human heartbeat. At this moment, he realized that this tree was his wife Sue. Not long after, Paul dragged 3 boxes filled with the tree's fruits. He told the people in the camp that these were fruits found nearby. A middle-aged woman took the biggest one and started eating it. Seeing this, the other residents also stepped forward to grab and eat the fruits. One might have thought this was Paul's little scheme, but those who ate the fruits didn't show any abnormalities. Seeing this, Paul ran back to Marcus. Marcus now knew that Sue would never come back. Mother also soon discovered that tree of wisdom. She knew that Sue had turned into the tree under Soul's guidance. After knowing and getting along with each other for such a long time, Mother and Sue had developed a deep friendship. Seeing her good friend turn into a tree, Mother also felt very sad in her heart. Not long after, she returned to the camp and stopped those who were eating the fruits. Just as she was about to throw away the remaining fruits, she heard the giant snake become unusually violent. When she reached the cave entrance, the iron gate had been smashed out of shape by the giant snake. Mother hurried over to reprimand it. This time, the giant snake didn't obey Mother's order. After seeing the fruits on the ground, it broke through the steel gate and rushed out. Immediately after, it swallowed all the fruits and flew toward the tree. Paul and Marcus were standing guard here. Suddenly, they heard Sue's voice coming from the walkie-talkie. Marcus realized that this was Sue contacting them through some means. At this moment, the branches of the tree also began to move and soon clustered together. Shortly after, they saw the giant snake. The snake circled continuously above the tree. Marcus felt something was wrong and told Paul to quickly hide aside. Then he picked up a torch, lit the base of the big tree, and tried to burn it to the ground. But it was already too late. The giant snake opened its huge mouth, dived down, and swallowed the entire big tree in one gulp. In an instant, a golden light flashed from the giant snake's head. The tree was uprooted immediately. The giant snake's body also began to change slowly. Several long and terrifying tentacles grew out of its body. As the big tree burned, wings also grew from the giant snake's waist. Even electric sparks emanated from the corners of its mouth. It looked exactly like the legendary Quetzalcoatl, but obviously an evil version. Marcus and his son knew there was nowhere to run, and just as they were in despair, Mother appeared in time. After a moment of internal struggle, she still launched an attack on the snake, but what she didn't expect was that there seemed to be an air wall between them, which blocked her attack. Before Mother could react, the giant snake let out a roar. With one strike, it knocked Mother flying from the sky. When Marcus and Paul found Mother, her body was already in pieces and had automatically entered a dormant state, so the two carried Mother onto the tank to charge and treat her. After Mother woke up, Marcus asked her why she didn't finish off the giant snake on the spot, for he could tell that Mother hadn't used a lethal attack. Now that things had come to this point, Mother finally told the truth. It turned out that the giant snake was her 7th child. The reason she didn't kill it was that the parenting program in her system had blocked her command to launch a lethal attack. To kill the giant snake, the program had to be modified. Marcus was very determined, for his wife had turned into a tree and been eaten by that giant snake. He planned to help Mother modify the program to kill the giant snake and avenge Sue. After Marcus and Paul sent Mother back, they planned to let the ancient robot modify Mother's program. Although that ancient robot had no attack system, its structure was extremely complex. It was obviously a top-tier technological product from a past era on Kepler. Furthermore, it had even saved Campion once before, so the boy called this robot Grandmother. Grandmother told them about itself. It turned out that both the metal card and itself were creations of a group of ancient humans. They were called the Technicians. Grandmother's mission was to ensure the continuation of civilization on Kepler, but the Mthraic religion's goal was the opposite. They wanted to destroy this planet. As for the giant snake, it was a creation of the sect. Its birth was solely for the purpose of destruction, to remove the parenting program from Mother's system. Grandmother planned to transplant its own mask onto Mother. At the same time, Campion was chasing Lisa and arrived at an abandoned tank. When he climbed into the tank, he found splatters of blood everywhere inside. Lisa had been attacked by the giant snake and had come here to look for repair tools. At this moment, the roar of the giant snake came again. Lisa realized that the giant snake's target was actually Campion. To prevent the giant snake from finding them, the two closed the hatch and hid inside the tank. After a while, to stop the giant beast from harming others, Campion decided to use himself as bait. To lure the giant snake away from the camp, he and the girl went deep into the jungle together. Just then, Lisa's mechanical body suddenly malfunctioned. She picked up a stone from the ground, and quickly carved words on the smooth trunk of a tree. Campion would never have imagined that Lisa's body was already on the verge of collapsing. Lisa only wanted to record all her memories in her final moments, but before she could finish, she fell to the ground and stopped moving. Campion was utterly helpless and could only hold the girl he liked in his arms. It was the first time he had felt the bitterness of love. The giant snake was still chasing closely behind them. At this moment, Mother arrived and lured the snake into space. Mother, with her parenting program removed, was completely different from before. She killed the giant snake without hesitation. At the same time, the electromagnetic field of Kepler was also damaged. The temperature of the entire planet dropped sharply, and heavy snow began to fall. After returning to the camp, Mother didn't take off the mask immediately. Instead, she first came to restore order. Grandmother quickly bonded with the children while taking care of them. Considering the children's safety, everyone scanned the metal card related to the Tree of Wisdom. Only then did they understand the reason for the Tree of Wisdom's appearance. It turned out that there was a magical seed inside the cube. This seed could merge with a human body, use the human as nutrients, and grow into a towering giant tree. Now, due to the sudden drop in temperature, the available food was becoming less and less, but the acid sea, due to its extremely low freezing point, wasn't affected much. People could only use fungi from the acid sea as a substitute for food to survive hardship. Mother watched all this clearly from the background system. She noticed that recently, scale-like structures had grown on Campion's body. Moreover, he was becoming more and more adaptable to the acidic environment. Even such a situation had appeared on Pace's baby. It seemed that the children's bodies had already started to evolve, to adapt to this acidic environment. Mother realized that something terrible was happening. It seemed that a crisis was approaching. She hurried to take off the mask, but unexpectedly, the mask had turned into an unremovable film that kept extending downward. At the same time, it was frantically absorbing Mother's energy. It quickly wrapped Mother's entire body. In the end, Mother entered a dormant state again. Just then, a figure appeared quietly. It was Grandmother. She placed Mother into a dormant pod. It turned out that all this was a trap set by Grandmother. Her goal was to continue human civilization at all costs, so she modified the program, hoping to make humans evolve into acid sea creatures, to improve their adaptability to the environment. As long as humans could continue to exist, even if mutations occurred, it wouldn't violate the original purpose. Mother still wanted to make a final struggle, but Grandmother ignored her and closed the dormant pod. At the same time, she trapped Mother in a virtual world, until all humans evolved into acid sea creatures. When everyone realized Mother was missing, they all became nervous. After Paul checked the materials left by Sue, he discovered that the mysterious sound source of the God Soul was actually underground. Marcus remembered the cave of that temple. Maybe some secrets could be found there. It was late at night, and Marcus came to the temple alone, planning to go down into the cave again, to see who or what was making the sound. He was just about to go down when he opened his eyes again. He found himself hanging upside down from a tree. The one who had attacked him was Truman. The latter had also been bewitched by Soul, and decided to act in accordance with the God Soul's instructions. After Sue turned into the Tree of Wisdom, Marcus abandoned his original faith. Therefore, the God Soul sent Truman to punish him. Marcus was thus hung from the tree. After being hung for an unknown amount of time, he finally stopped moving. Truman was also about to leave when he found that Marcus had disappeared. Just then, a few drops of liquid fell from above. Truman looked up. The scene in front of him almost scared him to death. At this point, the story of Raised by Wolves Season 2 comes to an end here. Raised by Wolves Season 2 was released in 2022. It tells the story of mother and father, who, along with 6 human children, join a newly established atheist colony in the mysterious tropical region of planet Kepler 22b. However, in this unfamiliar new society, their troubles have only just begun, for Mother's biological child may lead the remaining humans to extinction. Overall, a slow pace seems to be a common issue with the series, though it isn't unreasonably slow. It barely filled all the plot holes from the previous season only to dig many new ones. The next sequel is still nowhere in sight, yet the premise is still deeply loved by fans. The apocalyptic setting, the intense tension between the religious and the atheist factions, and the excellent special effects design, all make it a worthwhile sci-fi adventure film that is well worth watching.